Hi, good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes. I am Edgar Palacios, founder of Revolución Educativa. Our organization is working on increasing and building sustained collective power in the Latinx community around issues of education. Today, we're going to be tackling an important topic to us, which is tuition equity. And so we're going to learn from folks who have been directly impacted by legislation and policies that prevent members of our community from attending college. And so before I get to all of that, I actually want to welcome my colleague and co-host, Ivan. Ivan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I'm excited for this conversation. Hello, everybody. I'm Ivan Ramirez, the Digital Experience Director for Revolución Educativa.
Ivan, thank you so much for co-hosting with me this evening. I look forward to this conversation. And with that, we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to start with Yasmin. Yasmin, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, what we need to know about you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Yasmin Valdez. I am a DACA recipient. I'm 20 years old. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, but I'm from the dot, so don't get it twisted. I graduated from Sumner Academy, then went on to Donnelly College, and now I'm a junior at Rutgers University studying political science and nonprofit management. I'm very passionate about nonprofits, so I actually work for one. It's called Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, and tuition equity is something that I hold very close to my heart. But I'll pass it along.
Thank you, Yasmin. We'll go to Caleb.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, my name is Caleb Chincoya Velasco. I was born in Oaxaca, and I'm also a DACA recipient. I was raised in Colorado, and I went to school in Iowa. I moved around a lot, and of course, now I'm in Kansas. I studied computer information technology and with a minor in business, and my passions include coffee. I roast my own coffee, I make my own lattes, and music, which I've studied since I was 7. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm going to ask you about day-old chai tea lattes here in a little bit, knowing that that's your passion. Atzin.
Howdy, my name is Atzin Garcia. I was born in Miacaclan, Morelos, and I was brought here at around 2 years old. I've applied for DACA. I have not gotten in yet. There was kind of some issues with that because of an age limit that I had. But yeah, I studied music at Kansas City, Kansas Community College. I'm planning to transfer to a new university, probably UMKC, hopefully. And, tuition equity would really help out with me transferring to there. So I hope something gets done.
Well, we thank you all for being here this evening, helping us educate our community around this issue. I'm going to start with Yasmin. So as part of your work with AIR and in your commitment to nonprofit organizations and being in this space, tell us what your work has been around tuition equity and how you've personally been impacted by its policies.
Yeah, so I studied in Missouri. So if I had gone to any other public universities in Missouri, I would have been personally affected by those outrageous prices that come with tuition. And so I had to just make the most reasonable decisions for myself. When I graduated from Sumner, I had very little resources that were, known about by my high school counselors. So I had to look to outside organizations like the Kansas Missouri Dream Alliance and El Centro, and just different places that I knew could actually bring me those solutions, because I knew I wanted to continue my education. And I continued to see this problem as I graduated, and I knew that I was leaving behind other students that would be in the same position as myself. And not only that, but also feel just drained and upset about the circumstances. So I decided to come together with other friends in my college at Donnelly to create an undocumented webinar that would basically put all these resources that we had all found into one place, a presentation that we could share with people. And it was very successful. We were actually very happy that we could touch so many students and get on people's emails list and just let them know that this was something that they could use. And then I soon got hired by AIR, and they were like, we would love to see this program into our organization's doings. And we visited a lot of schools last semester, and I still go back to Sumner, and I have one-on-ones with students, and it always breaks my heart because I still have to tell them like the realities, because part of the undocumented webinar is that it's better to just say what's the actual facts, like you can't qualify for that, than to lead someone on and be like, maybe you can qualify for that, I would just apply, because sometimes it's a waste of time, and it also just makes you feel worse in the end. I've been in those positions, and so I always am very transparent with our students, and I let them know, like, if you go to Missouri University, it's going to be more expensive, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. I know DACA students who have gone to public universities in Missouri, and we can make it happen if that's what you want, but I want to be upfront about that. And so in my work, I see it all the time, and it's going to continue to happen because of the DACA program ending, or being in this weird transition area, and there's no clear pathway to citizenship. So we're going to continue to have students who will need these resources, unfortunately, but we're going to be there for them. So that's if anything, that's a silver lining, is that we have more people in this space that are willing to guide students and get them the resources that they need.
Yasmin, I appreciate that wonderful introduction into the topic and intersection within your life and how you've experienced this work. Quickly, I want to just welcome folks who are watching us at the moment. Shout out to Representative Ingrid Burnett, who today introduced legislation to remove the harmful language from the budget in Missouri that would allow for our DACA and undocumented students to pay in-state tuition prices versus not paying in-state tuition prices. And then we also have Nancy. Nancy, what a great panel. Thank you to each of you for taking the time to do this. Thank you for watching us this evening and being a part of this conversation. Atzin, walk us through your experience.
So I went to Lincoln College Prep since middle school, but in high school. So I was very lucky that my parents cared about college and put me in a institution where I would have resources, more resources available than in other KCPS schools. And I was also lucky to meet people along the way, like Ivan, who have connected me with wonderful people at UMKC. And I think it was heartbreaking to learn of my situation and how it impacted going to college, and also heartbreaking to learn about the entire complex of how college is needed to work and needed to survive, yet so many, the people who need college the most can't get it. And that's what really, is painful for everyone. But for me, it was all about, just trying to do it for my parents and trying to do it for me and my community. And that's why I went to community college. We could afford it. I was grateful to get a scholarship because of music. That also helped out. And because I was not, honestly, in a way, this kind of affected my grades too. So it was like, I felt like pressure in so many different ways. And that's something that I don't think it's talked about enough. And this is how mentally it can affect you in becoming a student, and the student you need to be to get a good college. So I think I'm happy where I am now. I hope things change so that I can get a 4-year degree, but things are, the way they are.
Thank you, Atzin, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your music later in the year with some more programming. Caleb, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So my story is a little bit, I guess, coming from a different perspective. I went to high school in Colorado, and I finished my senior year in 2012. So right after DACA was made a thing, I think it was about 6 months or so until I was able to get a permit. So I received my permit in 2013. And at this point, I wasn't certain what I'd do with college. Not having a social security number made it difficult to get in anywhere. So luckily, and I think this is by the grace of God and those around me who cared for me, who saw something in me, that they helped me go to college. And so I went to school in Iowa. And that was there for 4 years, and definitely super difficult. Lots of costs, and definitely have to strive to be, I guess, the greatest that I can be, to get some of the scholarships potentially. Even after I received my DACA, my work permit, it was still fairly difficult to pay the bills. So, having to work, having to do extremely well in school, having to write tons of letters, trying to see if people who had helped me could continue to do so by providing grades and whatnot. There's definitely a lot of pressure that I feel like not a lot of people see. So definitely made me, I think, push me to be a great person, or at least get to the point where I am now. So I'm super grateful really to the people that supported me along the way, who taught me some valuable skills. And I can only imagine like the benefit that there would be if people, with DACA could receive in-state tuition. That'd be incredible.
Thank you for that, Caleb. I would quickly just shout out to Christy Moreno, who says, thank you, Ingrid Burnett, for your support and for filing the bill. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Christy was part of the RevvED team. She is our chief advocacy, our chief community advocacy and impact officer. And so she is doing the hard work of mobilizing and getting folks at the state capitol, making sure that they're hearing the voices of our Latino families in this area. And so appreciate the work that you're doing, Christy, and thanks for that support. I have a lot of questions. I want to kind of also take it back a little bit for the folks who may not know what DACA is and what that means and all these other things. And so we want to also make sure to be educational in this work. But before I ask that question, Ivan, you have worked in spaces where you're supporting Latino students and creating mentorship programs and running these type of engagement opportunities. What's been your experience with this? What have you seen from your work?
No, I would like to say the story of Atzin, it's unique, but there's also other students that are wanting to go to college. And I've met some of them as early as high school that whenever the DACA got rescinded, I had to recruit for colleges. It was hard to recruit and then look at them in the eye, and they knew that there was that barrier. These students are just like any other students, and I wish we would take the politics out of it. Like Atzin said, mental health is important. So I had a question for him also, because I know there's probably students watching us. What did you do to take care of your mental health? Or what would you tell those students that are also struggling, that they think that this might not be possible to them? You're an example to that, and you found ways to keep going and attain that education. But yeah, any tips that you have for students in high school or college that are struggling?
I would say, looking back, that I didn't do it the healthiest in the time. I think what I would say right now is that everyone, absolutely everyone on earth, and especially the DACA kids, has the strength within themselves to push through, and they can go through any challenge and come out stronger. And they really don't need anything except themselves, and they themselves are strong enough, that really, truly. But there's some things like that helped me, to be honest with you. It was music. It was my passion. And I think that's the thing that I think would help anybody, is having a purpose, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where, we eat, we have shelter, we drink, we're good on that end. The act of self-actualization is what every human, like, it drives me, and it drove me past all those challenges. And, like Caleb said earlier, it made me who I am now. And that's why I'm not regretful of anything that I've done, because it's all accumulated to this point. And that's what I would recommend to anyone. Just keep pushing through, find a purpose.
I gotta say, that's some really powerful testimony, and I appreciate the positive nature of the conversation, because I know that this is incredibly difficult, and I can only assume that there are moments where it's hard to know what's coming up and what's happening. And so I appreciate the positivity that you're sharing with us as well. Just quickly here, Representative Burnett, I got unintended grandchildren. I'd love to meet you and learn more from when you're possible. And so I think we can absolutely help arrange that. So Our representatives are hearing from those most impacted by the policies and legislation that Missouri currently has. And then Erika Garcia, I assume this is the Erika Garcia that works with us. I could be wrong. Thank you for having the courage to speak up and share how this impacts you. Any other questions, Ivan?
No,
All
I'm
right.
good for that. Yeah.
So take us back. Let's say I don't know anything about this issue particularly. What is DACA? What does that mean? What does it mean to you? And Caleb, I'm gonna actually, Yasmin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm not even like the most qualified to be answering this question. I actually got DACA last year in June. So we all know about how they opened up to take applications, and I was rushed to apply by KS Moda folks, and they were like, you have to apply now. Like, you've been waiting. And I applied with my stepdad. And I also told lots of my friends to apply as well. And I was like, KS Moda can help you. Like, we're going to get through this with still some fear. But I figured that it could be like the best thing that I could do, since last time that I wanted to apply, fear was what actually kept my application from going through. Because when you apply for DACA, you're basically giving them all your information, where you live, how you came, your fingerprints, like every bit of thing that you don't want to give to ICE, you have to give them. And so then my application went through, and I waited months, and I checked it every day. And then finally I realized that I was approved. But then days later, the program was taken away. And I felt like I had gotten a golden ticket that I didn't want. Like, I was like, my stepdad didn't get approved. Like, my friends didn't get approved. So many people that had submitted their application, paid their fees. I felt like I was not the person to get it. Like, I just didn't want it. Like, at that point, I felt like I was just kind of turning my back on the people that I love the most. And so, and I'm very fortunate that I do have it, and I try to use my DACA to continue my work. As soon as I got it, I went to DC with United We Dream, which is an immigrant rights organization, and put my body on the line marching in Washington, DC, because we all deserve our rights, and especially our undocumented families. And so the permit and the license, they've really have opened up a lot of doors for me. I used to drive with so much anxiety. I got pulled over 3 times, and every time I thought I was going to be deported because I just didn't have an ID I could provide to a police officer. And I also was also very just scared of like anything that could happen. But now I have my license, so I'm very grateful. And I'm just like, I can't believe that's something that, driving to work, driving to school, at any minute, like something could happen. And people still live that way. My family still lives that way. And the people that I work with still live that way. And that's no way to live. And so I make sure that, my privilege as a DACA recipient, I make sure to always be heard in every room. I go to a PWI. So every student in there, has some privilege or has never even worried about FAFSA or anything like I have. And so I make sure to always make sure that DACA recipients are heard in every room. And even if they get tired of hearing it, I'm going to say it again because that's what our students and community deserve.
Yasmin, for clarification, what is a PWI?
Predominantly white institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that. When acronyms start flowing, I want to make sure that people know what we're talking about. Caleb, Atzin, what's your reaction to this, or how are you resonating with Yasmin's story?
Yeah, no, there was one time where in college, right before I had DACA, my friends and I had taken a road trip for one of the organizations that we were part of. And it was a fairly long drive. And on the way back, it was fairly late. And the driver had just been driving. And I think eventually at some point, since I was sleeping, he got pulled over. And sure enough, a couple of police officers showed up, and they asked everyone for their ID, and I didn't have one to give. And that was very scary. I gave them my school ID, and luckily I had just gotten the Mexican consulate ID. So they straightened everything out, and everything worked out well. But that's a very big fear. Just traveling. I wasn't even the one driving. There's a passenger sleeping, and be woken up and just kind of live with that fear is sometimes fairly difficult.
Absolutely. And I think I wanted to add one thing about how this is what I think some states don't understand is another danger. It's hurting, not giving undocumented people licenses is hurting them in this way. This is why California and Illinois and other states like New York give even undocumented people licenses. If there's a car accident, say that's mortal, these people that are scared, as they should be, because we can get deported at any time for not having papers. What are we going to do? Are we going to risk ourselves to help these people, like, or are we going to run away? Like, there's just that aspect of it it's so stupid. Like, it's for the interest of themselves, of United States citizens to have undocumented people with licenses, with having the requirement to be able to drive, to be safe while driving. It's like, I'll never understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to mention that I think 26 states in the country actually have tuition equity policies that make it easier for undocumented and DACA students to pay in-state tuition rates for their education. And so Missouri is not one of those states. And that is one of the issues that we're trying to address at the state level. And that is just so I can be clear and just share with everybody. So today, Representative Ingrid Burnett introduced Missouri House Bill 2613 that would remove language from and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody out there in the cyber world, that removes language from the budget that allows our students to attend a public university in Missouri at in-state tuition if they're a resident of the state. Ivan, what questions are we missing?
I appreciate the stories that everybody has shared and your vulnerability. I think it's important for people to know and to see the humans behind all of this and get the politics out. My questions, I really I want to ask Atzin. I think you have an interesting story because you were so close to applying. And also, just want to say that it is possible. You also have a sibling that was able to graduate, right? So if it's not possible here, there's other institutions that will welcome you for you to get an education. But you were so close. So yeah, I think some people sometimes think or don't know the process that this takes. Can you tell us a little bit of that process?
Yeah, the application process is, expensive, and you gotta, not only the fee of it is like $500 to $650 now, I think, and you have to. It's not just about, you can't just send it from your house. You have to go to an attorney, and it takes a long time, a lot of effort, and like Yasmin said, you're vulnerable. You really are vulnerable. You're putting a lot of information on that could easily hurt you. And it's, the first time 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when it closed down, when Sessions, the Attorney General, when he shut it down the first time in 2016, I think, or 2017, was when I was 15 and the age limit was like 16, I was like 1 week away. That burned me so much. But this time it was different, and it different in that I got my application and I even had my biometrics, but it still closed down first. So I feel like I've just been, cheated twice now. But it's just a long process. It's such a long process, and you would think it'd be fast because we're giving them a lot of money, but no, even then they're still very slow with it. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy for my sister, though. And I'm very grateful for that people like Yasmin who deserve it got it, because it's really everyone. It's good that anybody was able to get it.
We have a question from Christy and Caleb. I'll direct this to you first. What can our communities do to support and advocate for young Latinos who are experiencing the fear and uncertainties you've experienced?
That's honestly a very hard question. Even thinking about myself and thinking of how I can help my peers. Some of the information that you have to gather, at least for DACA, or it like Atzin said, is quite difficult, and a lot of it has to pretty much come from the individual or from their family. When you come here for DACA, you have to submit depending on how you got here, you have to submit a lot of paperwork, including your flight ticket and any documentation that you first came in here. Which, for example, for myself, back in 2000, I'm not sure how many people have receipts from 2000, but some of that information, might be defaced and you can't even see it. So supporting individuals is, I think, definitely towards their families. For young adults who are maybe in the process of applying for DACA, you definitely could have that personal drive to apply for something like that if you are very aware of politics or what's going on in the U.S. But a lot of that's going to actually fall on the parents. When you're 15, 16, I'm not really watching the U.S. Senate. I'm not watching what is the latest on the DACA news. It's probably people around you, or your mom, your dad, or in this case my uncle and my mom helped me, and it was people in my community that also encouraged my parents to keep track and be vigilant. Depending on where your family comes from, some people might not even be able to read or write. So some of that information, just bare necessities of getting the documentation out there and sent is difficult, and it takes kind of a village in this sense to help that one individual, that young adult. So from a community standpoint, I definitely encourage to encourage the families, whatever they need. I know I don't want to say monetary necessarily, but when I was young, I couldn't afford like a laptop, and going to college, that was like a requisite. And so my church community pitched in, and they bought me a laptop. Wasn't the greatest or the best, but it meant a lot, and it helped me throughout my entire college career. So little opportunities like that, I think, are very beneficial and impactful on the individual. And as I got older, as I studied and expanded my worldview, I seek other opportunities where I can help others. And I think that support towards those young adults will pay off in the future.
Yasmin, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I echo that. Informing our parents at home, as well as I think that Revolución Educativa is doing an amazing job about this, as recruiting teachers, because at the end of the day, the people that most everybody interacts with is gonna be a teacher. And so whether you're undocumented or you're not, to have teachers that are wise enough to recognize the statuses and also be respectful of children's upbringings and stuff like that, I think that that's a very empowering, and I think our undocumented students webinar is doing a good job about that, because for me, a lot of doors were closed because of my teachers. They just didn't have the information, and because you're educators, I think they should want to just be holistic in the learning environments that they're catering, and so I just think that Revolución Educativa is doing an amazing job by putting educators on the front lines of these issues, because it's going to affect their students, and to have people so invested in our well-being, I think that's amazing. And so to continue to support nonprofits that do this kind of work, and sometimes calls to actions are as small as signing a petition or sending an email, so that doesn't take much out of people's day. So I would just say to listen to what your students need, and especially if you want to be a teacher or an educator or a community member that is passionate about justice and for everyone, because that includes undocumented people.
Thank you for elevating that, Yasmin, and thank you for your kind words. I think it's important to also note, so RevvED is an affiliate organization of the Latinx Education Collaborative, and the LEC is working on the increasing the teacher representation, Latino teacher representation in K-12. I think something that was really interesting in the intersection of this work is I read an article a couple years ago. The pandemic has warped my sense of time. It feels like yesterday and also like 2 years ago. I remember there was an article that at least 20,000 Latino teachers actually were DACA recipients. And so imagine if that hadn't worked out the way it did, we would have also lost a good portion of our Latino educators in spaces. And so that's why this issue is also important, right? Representation absolutely matters. And it's so important that we have folks that understand the lived experiences of our community, right? So I appreciate that intersection. Just quickly want to bring some other folks in the community. Not every comment is going to our Facebook page, and so making sure that I have Christy on, seeing what other comments or questions are out there. We have one of our educators, Lori Peters. She says, I have to refer my students across the state line for in-state tuition rate. So that's one way she's helping navigate folks. Carolina Salguero, she says, thank you for discussing this issue and bringing light to it. We have a question from Nancy, and I have some answers to this, but Atzin, love to hear your perspective of this. If we wanted to support you while we wait for legislative work to be done, what would be helpful to you?
That's so sweet that people want to help. I think I love the we part of that question, because I think Western society and the United States in the center of it is so hyper individualistic. It's all about me. And it should be collective. We should collectively help one another, and it should be, I think we should meet at the intersection with this. I think we should uplift, the working class in general, and with that, DACA recipients will be a part of that. I think, I do believe in that, and I think legislation, unfortunately, is the easiest way to do it right now. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not as optimistic as my two fellow colleagues here. We might need a revolution, or at least an educational revolution. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But yeah, I think it's just a very hard question. I really do think legislation is the best way, and supporting us while we wait is a very kind thought. I have no idea as to how that could possibly be done. I mean, some ideas that Yasmin and Caleb had were good, like perhaps not financially, but maybe for the ones who are maybe for the DACA recipients who are foster. I know there are foster kids who are DACA recipients who have it even harder, and homeless DACA recipients. So the ones at the very bottom, I think are the ones that need the most help from individuals like Nancy, I think, who asked a question.
There are some things that we can do, right? And so first and foremost, we can support a bill that removes the harmful language from Missouri state budget. And so I've actually in the comments, I put a link to the bill that is trying to attempt that was submitted earlier today by Representative Ingrid Burnett. I'm going to just quickly show the picture because she was super excited to submit that bill in support of our community. So I want to make sure we shout her out in this effort. I know there is a coalition across the state too that's working on this issue, but something that I've learned through this work is that written testimony, even if you don't belong to the undocumented community, it doesn't mean that you can't actually lend your support and say that this is something that's right for all of our community. And so written testimony to your local legislator in support of this legislation is something that you can do. Supporting our students and writing letters of recommendation for scholarship programs, donating to organizations like the Hispanic Development Fund, who offer scholarships to undocumented and DACA recipients, picking up, sending an email, calling your local legislator and saying, hey, we are in support of this, organizing folks, bringing other folks from the community who care about this and are passionate of this, calling your local university and saying, hey, you need to be at the table with this conversation. There's a lot of ways that you can support, even though sometimes it might feel a little hopeless, or the process may not be as quick as we want it to be. I know we are a little bit over time, and so I'm really appreciative of your generosity with your time tonight. I'm gonna ask one final question here before we transition out. But what are the biggest needs and resources parents of undocumented youth students need to support them? And that is open to anyone.
Do you mind saying the question one more time?
Yes. What are the biggest needs and resources parents of undocumented youth students need to support them? Essentially, how can your parents help you out?
Yeah, I was going to say probably filling out government forms. Yeah, I honestly, I think I was 16-ish. Oh, no, I was about 18 when I got DACA, and even as an adult at this point, reading overall, the long list of pages, I think naturally I would look for my family to support me in this. But if they too don't know how to fill out these government forms or how to fill out the government verbiage, and we couldn't afford a lawyer, so it was kind of a collective where people who did know some of that, or people who had experience with a certain form in the past, or had filled out government forms, they probably had the biggest impact in that particular instance, and then just kind of delegating either to my parents, myself, like, all right, this is what you need, and my mom at this point didn't really know English, so having someone to help translate or be able to support us in filing was probably the biggest help. I know there are certain times or instances where that opportunity is closed, so maybe providing or teaching preemptively, rather than reactively. Once it maybe does come back up and new applicants can apply, then they're ready. That way, when it's first available, they can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I want to echo that. My mom, whenever I would apply to HDF, which is usually the one that always asks me for my taxes, my mom would just lose it. She'd be like, why do you need my taxes? Like, I haven't, I don't even know where they're at, like all these things. And I'm like, Mom, like, I need money. That's literally why I need your taxes. They need to know how much money our family has so that they can give me some more money so I can go to school and I could, go to continue my education. And so now it's like, now she knows in January I'm asked for her taxes because the application closes in February. So she knows me now that she has to have it ready. But even then, like having those difficult conversations, I remember one time I was coming from a college fair at Sumner, and I was like so upset because every booth I was visiting was like, I don't think we could take you. Like, no, I don't have any resources. And I was on the bus ride home just crying and sobbing and just being so upset about life, because all the other seniors, they felt like they had a place to go, and they had the information they needed. And then I came home and my stepdad saw that I was crying, and like I didn't want to tell him why, because I knew I was going to make him feel bad. And so finally he got it out of me, and he was like, it doesn't matter that they don't want you because we will figure it out a way. Like, we're no matter, like, they might not support you, but we are. And so, you know, and my parents, they don't have a lot of information. Obviously, like I couldn't ask them about college as a first gen student. But one thing that they do have is just the support. Like if I need something for school, like they'll for sure, like no matter how low our income is, no matter what my other siblings need, like they're gonna make sure that they can cover my needs. And I'm really grateful for that. Just having those supportive parents, whatever I wanted to study too, like they didn't stand in the way of, because they knew it was already hard. And so, so I think that having parents that, you know, whatever you want to study, and they're also very interested in what you want to study, and they ask you questions, and they want to make sure that, you know, you're continuing okay, because it's already really hard to go to a university where maybe nobody has your same story and you maybe don't have that support. And then to also come home to that, like I feel like that's also very difficult. So to just have parents that are supporting and kind and also patient, you know, I feel like college students, there's a lot of things we just kind of have to move on. We fail a quiz, okay, like we have to go on our day, like nothing happened. But to have that patience and kindness at home is really necessary.
You know, I resonate with that so much. My parents are from Nicaragua, and they moved to this country in 1985 or 1981. And you know, that cultural brokering that we have to do, and navigating them and us in these conversations and explaining to them why we need these things, even when we may not be super clear on why it is that we need these things, right? I hated filling out the FAFSA, and I hated like filling out these other forms that my parents didn't understand why. We're very, you know, suspicious of all these other things, and then they're also pushing me to go to college or to figure it out, right? You're like, so many pressures. That is what it is to be like Latino sometimes, right? I think that is part of the experience, is that join us and unite us as a community, particularly when your parents are immigrants and when you're first gen as a student. Christy actually asked a good question, and so I'm going to have her, well, not have her, but I think this is an important question as we close out. And just quickly, Nancy, the organization that supports scholarships or provides scholarships is the Hispanic Development Fund of Greater Kansas City. They do phenomenal work, and I'm a happy donor to that organization. It's one of my favorite organizations in our community. Christy's question, our final question, and that's how we'll wrap up today. What are the biggest misconceptions, false narratives you've encountered as a DACA seeker or a recipient?
I always get the question of, why haven't you become a citizen yet, especially after such a long time. It's probably the most difficult one, to try to explain, I guess, the process. Even, you know, I don't know all the lingo that goes into certain bills or whatnot, but what I do know is that at this point I can't become a citizen because the government says so. And so trying to, I guess, explain that sometimes is difficult, and that what I have is just a work authorization, you know, and everybody's always convinced, hey, this other person, you know, became a citizen, why can't you become a citizen? Well, you know, honestly, I don't know you that well. I don't want to explain my whole life into why I came to the United States and the legal battles, just because, you know, I just met you or something. But that's probably the biggest one for me.
I think also, building off of that, the manner in how you got to this country, how you immigrated to this country, it doesn't happen so much to me anymore, but I feel like some people may have the conception that most DACA recipients and immigrants in general just, you know, hop a wall and cross, like in the Arizona desert, like with a coyote chasing them, like in the hot sun or something like that. Like, and it's nothing. The vast majority of it, it's not. It's they come in legally through a plane and they just overstay their visa. So I think that'd be the biggest misconception for sure.
Yeah, for me, it's more like the good immigrant, bad immigrant narrative. It's like, these immigrants deserve citizenship and they deserve like all the students that are DACA recipients. Some DACA recipients aren't students. Some DACA recipients are just working and living. And that's literally like they're as worthy as other people to have protections. And just because you're a good, hardworking immigrant doesn't make you like not deserve citizenship, or maybe like even if you're like a couch potato. I feel like I talked to my therapist about that. I'm like, I always feel like there's so much pressure on me because I have to represent for undocumented people and I have to work harder than my white counterparts. And she's like, if you're a couch potato sitting watching TV all day, like I feel like that's enough contribution. Like not everybody has to exceed and excel to be worthy of protections and not living in fear. And so I would like to just get rid of that, because like no other, maybe there are other, but like no, usually demographics aren't just like good. Some are good and some are bad. I mean, yeah, obviously stereotypes exist, but that's not okay. And so to have just people think that only some people deserve protections and the rest can be deported, or those people have families. And so we have to make sure that when we advocate for immigrants, we advocate for all of them, and it's not just the pretty person that is hardworking and goes to school and all these kinds of things. Like there are hardworking people who aren't in school, who maybe don't feel like are worthy of it, but they're still just as worthy of protections.
I appreciate and resonate with each of those three responses. Caleb, to your point, as I think from my parents' experience, they were here 20 plus years before they ever were considered for citizenship. To Atzin's point, they flew. They landed in Miami International and they overstayed their visa. And if it wasn't for President Reagan back in the day and amnesty, they would have more than likely never become citizens. And Yasmin, to your point, I think that's actually a conversation within the Latino community itself, because I hear our community sometimes buy into those narratives of who got here the right way versus who didn't get here the right way. And those conversations internally are incredibly hurtful and damaging to the community at large. And so I just really want to just thank you all for your testimony and your advocacy today. This is what we're about as an organization. We're about elevating these conversations. We're about bringing them to light and demanding that our community has access and rights that are afforded to others, particularly in areas of education. And so appreciate your testimony this evening. And it's really powerful. Yvonne, any final thoughts?
I just want to mention, I want to elevate also our parents. RevvED tries to build a coalition. We're trying to build a coalition of students, parents, leaders. And at this moment, I just want to elevate our parents' sacrifice. Thanks to them, we are here, whether we are legal, illegal, DACA, whatever, but we are here seeking a better life and trying to change our communities. And you all having DACA will only make our community and make us all stronger as a community. So yeah, just those words and words of appreciation to our parents.
Yvonne, I'm gonna just push back a little bit. For me, it's like no one's illegal in this country, and so I don't want to utilize those terms. I want to make sure that our folks know that we're here, period, regardless of citizenship status and whatnot, and that we're here and we deserve to be here, and we deserve those same access to rights and opportunities that others have. And so with that, I want to appreciate each and every one of you. Again, thank you so much for being here. We're going to be in touch privately because Representative Ingrid Burnett wants to convene with you all and listen to your stories. And advocacy and testimony are powerful ways of making action happen. So we'll be in touch. But other than that, everybody have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy yourselves. I'm supposed to play an outro video, so let's see if it works.